County, she's a little bit below that. Milwaukee, we know that there's a lot of the vote that probably isn't going to be counted for a while. They had to rerun a bunch of the ballots, an 84,000 vote edge here, more than making up for it. We're also been looking at Madison. That's a liberal stronghold. But functionally speaking, she's not going to get as many votes here, in all likelihood, as even though she's getting close to the benchmark, she's not going to get as many votes here as Joe Biden did, both in terms of the margin as well as the total number of votes. You have to just kind of wrap it up in Dane County, Madison, and Milwaukee if you're going to win as a Democrat in Wisconsin.
You're talking about the University of Wisconsin right here. That's right. I'm just curious because we haven't talked about this yet tonight. I mean, obviously, it's a blue county, right? Let's just look at the benchmark where Donald Trump needs to be. See, he's outperforming slightly. Yeah. That matters on both sides here as they rack up the vote. I'm curious, in university towns, I wonder when we look back, the young male vote from some of these university towns, that was a huge part of the Trump campaign. I don't know if that's going to bear out, but that might be part of the equation in some of these university centers on why she might be just underperforming slightly from where she would need to be having a winning night here. Obviously, she's ahead by 1,800 votes, very close race in Wisconsin, but these are the tiny little margins we're going to be looking at.
And we're seeing that in so many different places, David, too. We're just seeing places where Donald Trump is doing better than his 538 benchmark. Sometimes it's not as dramatic as this is. If you look at the final votes here, Harris isn't even close to where she was last time in Green Bay. So a bunch of places where you're just not seeing the Harris numbers and you are seeing the Trump numbers. It's very striking. There's a similar storyline that's playing out throughout Pennsylvania tonight. Again, we're waiting on a lot of vote. We're waiting on all of these Democratic places. It's all there. But it isn't too early to say. Look at a county like Schuylkill, where the 538 benchmark would have Harris needing to get 28, 29 points. Not there, not even close. In some of these counties, they're not that big, but they've got most of the vote in already, and you're seeing Donald Trump tick up a little bit from his margins last time around, and that adds up over time, even if these other big places.
No question. Let's look at Allegheny County.
Yeah, Allegheny County, Harris is hitting her number almost exactly, but again, it's not right now enough to kind of outweigh what's happening elsewhere in the state.
The Erie County, which is obviously one of the boomerang counties.
Yeah,
she appears to be holding on.
She appears to be holding on. We have a lot of votes still outstanding.
Is here.
Yeah, she's doing well beyond it. There's so much vote outstanding, it's hard to say what it is. Scranton is another great one to look at. Kamala Harris is not quite where 538 would suggest she needs to be, not quite where Joe Biden was, a little bit better than Hillary Clinton. Meanwhile, Trump, look at the other side of that. Trump is doing better than he did either time that he ran in Lackawanna County.
So 123,000 votes separates the two of them. Donald Trump in the lead in Pennsylvania right now. Michigan, what are we looking at?
Yeah, in Michigan, we're seeing a lead right now for Harris of almost exactly the same, and we have a lot of the urban areas in the state still to go. I mean, start with Washtenaw County, Ann Arbor. You talk about your college towns. Here's an interesting one where Trump is doing a little bit better again than the benchmark. So that might play out that theory. Lansing, there isn't a lot of vote there, but so far we're seeing a little bit better than the benchmark would suggest in a place that will be pretty liberal at the end of the night. And of course, we're going to be really dialed into Wayne County. That is Detroit. It's also Dearborn, where there's a very large Arab American population that's been critical of Kamala Harris and the Joe Biden Israel policy. Not a lot of vote there to learn much about it yet.
And what's the benchmark? How is she doing compared to where she needs to be?
She's doing far better, but there's still a little vote in there, and I believe it's the early in-person vote, which happened for the first time in Michigan this time.
We're looking at margins of 100,000 votes in Michigan, 100,000 votes in Pennsylvania separates them, and what, 1,500 votes in Wisconsin?
Right there. It's 5,000 votes. It's less than 5,000 votes in Wisconsin. And again, that is the only path she has left if North Carolina and Georgia don't go her way. And we've had some significant news in North Carolina. We were talking earlier about that big vote that was out in Charlotte. Well, we got a lot of that vote now. It's 90% reporting. Kamala Harris did very well. She picked up 170,000 votes out of Charlotte, but she's still losing by 130,000. And those big blue dots are getting smaller. Less and less of that outstanding vote there for her to make up a significant margin, and that 135,000 is significant when you're already in a state that has got 84% reporting.
Yeah, all right. Well, North Carolina, it's narrowing the chances in North Carolina, which really then looks like the Rust Belt would be the only path. Virginia's been interesting to me. How close is this race still?
Yeah, we're seeing Harris begin to open up a little bit more of a lead. That's I think, really going to be the story of Virginia, is that there really wasn't a world where it should have been close. And you look at some places where Kamala Harris is running significantly below Joe Biden, Loudoun County, which is the suburbs of Washington, D.C., which makes it a blue state. projected now, but it was closer than it should have been by all rights. And you see some more working class parts of the state tending to do a little bit better. You know, even in the capital of Providence, Kamala Harris not quite Joe Biden's numbers. You start to see that kind of erosion, that slippage. It doesn't really matter where it is. Yeah, New Hampshire, we haven't had a projection yet. We're talking about a 20,000 vote margin in a state that gets a lot of political attention. A lot of the Democratic votes are here in the southern part. We have to wait to see if we get more, about half of it in so far. But the earlier point still holds that places where Democrats should get a projection pretty early in Connecticut and New Jersey. New Jersey should win New Jersey, but the fact that we even mentioned it on air in an election and in Connecticut on air, 24,000 vote margin, tells you that there's something that she hasn't really been able to bring out her base in places that don't get a lot of attention.
Yeah,
presidential
the Democratic base, and it's a question of what kind of coalition is she able to pull this off? Did she put together in order to pull it off? And if not, the questions will be why wasn't she able to pull it off? Show us in each one of these three blue wall states the map that shows us the outstanding vote, the percentage of the vote.
Sure. Start here in Pennsylvania, again down 120,000 votes. That's Philadelphia and the eastern suburbs. A little bit in Pittsburgh. Places like Harrisburg, State College, Erie, they're 50-50 splits are close to it, so you're not going to net as much either way. That's the path that's still there, and it's very much an existing path. I think Pennsylvania very realistic. Michigan, I mentioned how little vote is in Detroit right now. I think you'll see it come up in a very dramatic way there. I mean, some of these bubbles overlap because the counties are so close, and there's just a lot of vote that's left there. Harris right now, this is the new numbers, is 100,000 votes or so, and Wisconsin. Again, Milwaukee is just going to be huge here. Madison, most of the vote is already in a heavily Democratic place. Right now, it's only about 3,000 votes as the numbers continue to roll on.
And I know we're even diving into some of these college towns. Actually, this is going to be something we look at later, how young voters split, if the gender gap was what we think it could be potentially going into election night. What do you see?
Yeah, we know Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump, quite frankly, trying to get young male voters to turn out. Vice President Kamala Harris trying to get younger voters to turn out in general. Lacrosse, home to 3 different colleges, thousands of students. Let's take a look at how she's doing here. 52% of the vote. She's ahead by 3,500 votes so far. She's pretty much almost where President Biden was, with 71% of the vote in. Eau Claire, another one. Take a look here. She's still leading in this county as well, ahead by 4,000.
Just checking the benchmark. I'm just so curious of where she's just slightly under where 538 thought she should be. Can you show us back? Let's go back to lacrosse just for a second. Yeah, she's just under where she needs to be in these college towns. Where else were you looking?
Also in Madison, Dane County, this has high voter turnout here. You still have 89% of the vote in. 90% of this county turns out to vote. I don't know where that happens anywhere else in America, but she's going to need to do well here. And then, of course, Waukesha for former President Donald Trump going to be absolutely critical. This doesn't have to go Republican. It has to go super Republican. This is really where he has to super energize his base. And then also, you know, Rick was talking about Milwaukee. Former President Donald Trump campaigning here also multiple times. Well, traditionally, yes, this does go towards Democrats, of course. Vice President Kamala Harris right now, 66%. Let's see where she is for the 538 benchmark. Just under that right now. But former President Donald Trump, Waukesha is where he earns the most votes, 2016, 2020. The second highest for him is Milwaukee. So he still has to run up the score in Milwaukee in order to do well.
All right, this is the key number at this hour, 6,500 votes between them. Donald Trump leading in Wisconsin tonight. We're going to keep our eye on all three of these states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Don't go away. We'll dive into these numbers even more. We're going to have a break.
I'm Chief Certified Meteorologist Betty Davis, tracking Rafael over the Caribbean. We'll talk about the timeline for when it gets over the Gulf, how strong it will be, updates on Local 10 and Local10.com.
When your child has moderate to severe eczema, it's okay for them to show off. Show off their clearer skin and noticeably less itch with Dupixent. Because children 6 months and older with eczema have plenty of reasons to show off their skin. With Dupixent, the #1 prescribed biologic by dermatologists and allergists, they can stay ahead of their eczema. It helps block a key source of inflammation inside the body that can cause eczema to help heal your child's skin from within. Serious allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Tell your doctor about new or worsening eye problems, such as eye pain or vision changes, including blurred vision, joint aches and pain, or a parasitic infection. Don't change or stop asthma medicines without talking to your doctor.
Wow, Trump ông lên 210, ba cái mẹ của 91 à. Vậy ông Trump còn có 60, gần 60 nữa là ông 60 cái đại cử tri là ông thắng rồi. Thường nó chênh lệch xa nhiều như vậy thì cũng khó để ba cái báo có thể lật lại được. Nếu bây giờ bên Cali thì thường là có là Cali năm nay là có 54 đại cử tri, 54 đại cử tri, còn bên này ông Trump ông đã có 210, nếu cầm thêm 54 rồi tới ba kia mới có 140 mấy thôi thì cũng khó để mà có thể lật lại được cái tình thế. 91 cộng 54 là 142, 142 cộng Washington không biết bao nhiêu đại cử tri ở đó nữa. Mà ông là 210 rồi thì ông chỉ cần đến là 60 cái electoral vote nữa thôi là ông Trump ông để có thể thắng được rồi. Hầu như cái tiểu bang ở phía miền đông của nước Mỹ thì người ta đã có kết quả rồi. Bây giờ thì Cali thì mới có là gần 8 giờ thì nó đi sau phía bờ đông là 3 tiếng. Thì có thể cái vấn đề cái kiểm phiếu bên bờ đông bờ tây của nước Mỹ nó chưa có xong. Nhưng mà đến lúc này xong người ta sẽ cung cấp những những cái số chính xác hơn. Dẫu sao từ này đến lúc đó thì mình nghĩ cũng còn nhiều cái cơ hội để ba cái báo thể lật được cái tình thế, bởi vì 54 phiếu tại Cali cũng như bên Washington State mình không biết bao nhiêu phiếu đó, thì như vậy nó cũng không phải là nhiều lắm để đủ cho bà có đủ cái khả năng để mà lật lại được, bởi vì giờ nó tương đối nó cái khoảng cách nó xa quá. Nếu như thường như rồi khít khao thì có thể rằng là bà có thể lật ngược lại được, nhưng bây giờ là quá xa thì cũng khó để cho bà có thể lật lại được.
Switch to Mucinex Night Shift to relieve your cold and flu symptoms. Both help you get to sleep. Mucinex is uniquely formulated to leave your system faster so you wake up ready to go. Going to work, Brock. Oh, try Mucinex Night Shift and feel the difference. It's comeback season. This is ABC News coverage of Election Night 2024. Here again, David Moore. Welcome back to ABC News live coverage of election night here. We do want to call another state, Kansas. The 6 electoral votes of Kansas will go to former President Donald Trump.
Ông Trump ông vừa thắng thêm một tiểu bang Kansas nữa. Tiểu bang này có được 3 phiếu đại cử tri, ông thắng lên tiểu bang nữa. Bây giờ ông là 183. 213.
Because Obama helped him win the presidency in 2008. So, look, if we're looking at a scenario where Kamala Harris's path to winning the presidency is to win the blue wall and not to win any of the other battleground states in the Sun Belt, it would be 270 votes to 268 votes. The single vote that would put her over the top would be in Omaha. It would be that electoral vote in the state of Nebraska. Of course, we got a long way to go before that point, but that's why Republicans tried to change the rules in Nebraska. Lindsey Graham made a trip all the way out to Nebraska to try to convince
this election cycle.
Yes, election cycle. Donald Trump got involved. He called some of the state legislators to try to get them to change the rules there. They didn't change the rules, and that could be a very pivotal single electoral vote.
But it's early. It's early.
We got a long way to go.
So let's go back to some of these Senate races. We want to call a few more races here. In New Jersey, we can call the Senate race now for the Democrat Congressman Andy Kim, a 3-term congressman running for Senate. He wins. He's going to now take over the seat that was once held by Robert Menendez until he was convicted. So Congressman Andy Kim wins in New Jersey. In Virginia, seeking a 3rd term, Senator Tim Kaine has been reelected in Virginia, though the race has not been called in Virginia on the presidential level, which is quite extraordinary for this time of the night. In Texas at this hour, we can say Republicans Republican Senator Ted Cruz, who was seeking a third term, has been re-elected to the Senate. He'd been challenged by Congressman Colin Allred, of course, former Baylor, University of Tennessee Titans football player, three-term congressman himself. He had campaigned on so many issues, reproductive rights, one of them. Lindsay, you interviewed him in just the last week or two, and the Democrats really thought he had some prospects there. They were putting some late money into the campaign.
As you know, David, football is a little bit more of a popular pastime in Texas than politics is, and Colin Allred really staked a lot on that. Even his campaign ads really started on the football field, ended on the football field. He talked about how he'd taken down a lot tougher opponents than Ted Cruz before. But look, this really was an uphill battle for him. It's been 30 years to Election Day when a Democrat was able to win a statewide position in the state of Texas. And so really, this was a fierce, it shouldn't have been really when you think about it, but Ted Cruz has a pretty high unpopularity rate in the state of Texas. But for Colin Allred, this is really a disappointment. He actually thought that he was going to be able to do it. And do want to give a shout out to Andy Kim, the first Korean American to ever be a U.S. senator.
Now he'll represent New Jersey.
Yes.
No question. Let's get right to John Quinones on the ground in Texas. John, what do you make of the news?
Well, this was one of the most closely watched races in the country, David. The incumbent Republican, Ted Cruz, once a presidential candidate himself, challenged by three-term Democratic congressman and former, like Lindsay said, former NFL linebacker Colin Allred.
Yes.
They campaigned bitterly in the state over women's reproductive rights, the
Too late.
transgender rights. Cruz calling
Too
Allred
late.
too liberal for Texas. In the end, amidst a changing political landscape here in Texas, Ted Cruz survived the challenge just a few minutes ago. In his victory speech, Cruz specifically thanked Latino voters in this state, which he says have proven all the political prognosticators wrong.
John
Yeah,
Quinones
I
on
mean,
the ground
she-
there in Texas, John,
and
thank
she
you. Look at the margin there. That's
able
a much
to
bigger
flip.
margin than even better work when he took on Ted Cruz.
Kid,
Came
he
almost
only
within 2
need what?
points of defeating Ted Cruz, Rachel.
Yeah, within 2
60,
points,
she
much
need a
more
lot.
margin
She
this
need
time,
like
and that's because Colin
two,
Allred really underperformed in some of the big cities. So let's take Harris County. This is
118,
only
man.
Houston. You can see the 538 benchmark
So
that we
which
have.
which is she, right? See, I don't think she able to flip.
74% is what he needed to meet. 71 is where he was. David, I will tell you, Lindsay already said it, but Ted Cruz, deeply unpopular even in his own state. He's trying to rebrand his image to be more approachable, to be more bipartisan. I don't think there's anywhere else in this country where Cancun was talking about more than in this state. You remember those images of Ted Cruz at the airport after that deadly winter storm. Colin Allred read ad after ad on that, but ultimately Ted Cruz remained victorious in this state.
Rick Klein, you're over at the big board as well. What are you seeing in some of these key battlegrounds? How's Pennsylvania looking at this now?
Yeah, Pennsylvania right now is still a problem for Kamala Harris, and advantage Donald Trump, 100,000 vote margin, a lot left of the vote, and some of these bubbles will tell you the story about what's left. 175,000 votes left in Philadelphia is our estimate. Another 193,000 in Delaware County, Delco, a place where Harris is winning very big. Bucks County, still a lot of votes to be counted there, 240,000. So that's what's keeping this as a competitive state right now. But we've seen the numbers shift as more of the Republican parts of the state have fallen in line for Donald Trump. It's been almost consistent across the board. Again, not the biggest counties, but places where he's been able to build on his lead.
I think that's a good example. When you pulled up Perry County, just look at the threshold, the 538 threshold of where he needs to be. And this is the story of the night. He's outperforming slightly in all these rural counties. I think we're seeing this in a number of the swing states, which is helping him to build these margins against Kamala Harris.
That's exactly right, and it adds up over time, and I think that's similar to what we've seen in Michigan, in Wisconsin. Michigan doesn't have a lot of voting right now, but you're seeing some areas where Donald Trump in the past has not been that strong. This is more of a swingy type county. You can see where Joe Biden was. You see where Kamala Harris is. You see where Donald Trump was. You see where he is right now, and in many cases, it's that he's beating himself twice over, right? This guy's been on the ballot a lot. Voters have had the opportunity to vote for him or vote against him several times now. So again, it's not the big urban areas. That's going to go pretty Democratic. And it's still possible that Harris pulls out enough of the vote in Madison and Milwaukee where we're still waiting on vote. But it becomes difficult as time goes by. And that really is the story that's developing now in North Carolina. When we look at our remaining votes, these blue dots have been getting smaller throughout the night. And when you really get into it, you're talking about 115,000 votes. Okay, that's if you win that 2-1, you start to chip away at that 145,000 vote lead. But there may not be enough of those blue dots left in a Georgia or North Carolina based on what we're seeing tonight.
All right, we're going to continue to drill down on these blue wall states with Rick Klein and Rachel Scott over the board. We're closing in on 11 o'clock here in the east, 8 o'clock on the west. 4 more states set to close, including California, with its 54 electoral votes. Your local news is next, and we'll see you just minutes from now with more numbers coming in, including the Sunbelt states. We'll be right back.
We can't lose Gregory to Bel Air. He can't afford it. There isn't going to be a fight. I'm opening this up a bet tomorrow. He starts tomorrow. Fight. Got your back, man. Now open up, stay down.
It is election night across America. Our coverage continues now on Local 10 News at 11. Millions of voters casting their ballots for the next president and on key issues that matter to you. And no matter what, history is being made tonight.
And the results have been pouring in, and it could take time to count them all. And Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump focused on the number 270. That is how many electoral votes it will take to win and become the next president of the United States. And here is how it's looking right now. Kamala Harris, 113 to Donald Trump's 210 electoral votes. A lot of ground to make up for the vice president.
And Local 10 has you covered on this critical election night with a powerhouse political team. We have reporters spread out across South Florida and in Washington, D.C. for some of the biggest races.
But first, the most important race, who will lead our nation? Our D.C. Bureau Chief Ed Kennedy standing by in Washington where the vice president is hoping to make history. But we begin with Glenna Milberg at the former president's watch party. Glenna.
Nicole, it's a little bit quiet as you come to me here, but this crowd is getting pretty electric. There's about 1,000 people here now, but let me take you a couple of miles away at Mar-a-Lago, where former President Donald Trump and his family and another 1,000 New York of his supporters and club members have been there all afternoon watching the results. We're told we should be here pretty soon. Nobody really knows when, and a lot depends on those numbers. So the mood has been getting really good here. Every time the state is rolled as a red state, but right now the polls are just closing on the West Coast. And traditionally, the West Coast states are kind of a motherlode of Democratic votes, so the night really is very young. And then the swing states, those 7 swing states, still have all the votes counted and are very close. So really tough to tell here. A couple of women here were asking me what the math was like. You can tell how anxious everybody is getting. A huge roar right after 8 o'clock in Florida was called for Donald Trump. This is Donald Trump's 3rd Florida win in every one of his presidential elections. Only this time, the 30 electoral votes going to him by a much bigger margin than they did in 2016 and 2020. So right now, it's a wait